I welcome you all for this lecture series on artificial intelligence and machine learning. In this lecture, we will briefly discuss about biological neural network and how it has been inspired to develop the model of artificial neural network. And first, we should know why we should go for this BNN, biological neural network. The studying biological neural network offers valuable insights into the brain's functioning, including its adaptability, efficiency, and robustness. By understanding how biological neural networks process information, we can gain inspiration for developing more advanced artificial intelligence systems. This knowledge can be applied to improve artificial neural networks that we are calling it as ANN, as making them more efficient, adaptive, and robust. By mimicking nature's designs, we can potentially create AI systems that better handle complex tasks, learn from experience, and interact with their environment in a more human-like way. We'll see one by one. First, what is biological neural network? So, what is biological neural network? A biological neural network refers to a group of interconnected neurons in the brain and nervous system that work together and to process information. These neurons transmit signals through electrical impulses, chemical messengers, allowing the brain to perform complex functions such as sensing, thinking, decision making, and controlling body movements. This natural network forms the basis of all mental activities and bodily responses. So next, this is the structure of this is the biological neural network. It consists of various parts. So this is soma, or otherwise we can call it as cell body. This is the dendrites, and this is axon terminal, and this line is we are calling it as the axon. The total line, this thickest layer, we are calling it as the myelin sheath. The entire part we are calling it as myelinated axon trunk, and we are going to take all those parameters. By inspiring this only, we are going to develop the artificial neural network. So we'll see one by one the component of the biological neural network, the main component and also the synapses. The main components of biological neural networks are dendrites, synapses, soma, and axons. We'll see the function of each and every component, and we can draw the graph like that is a picture like this. Biological neural network, this is the input. This we are calling it as the dendrite. This part we are calling it as the cell nucleus or soma, and this is the axon, and this part we are calling it as the synapses. We'll see the component of this biological neural network. First one is the dendrites. What is the function of the dendrites is a single neuron. The basic unit of biological neural network consists of several key parts. Dendrites receive the, here see here, this is the dendrite. Dendrites receive the signals from neighboring neurons. This receives the signal from the here the human brain consists of billions and trillions of neurons. It receives, this dendrites receive the signal from the neighboring signals from the neighboring neurons, while the cell body, this we are calling it as the cell body or a soma. Cell body or a soma process these inputs. The processed signals then travels through the axon, a long extension that carries the messages to long extension transmission line, like transmission line. It carry long extension that carries the message to another neurons. At the end of the axon terminal, this is the axon terminals receives the release the neurotransmitters into the synapse. This is the synapse, which is the gap between neurons. Some axons are covered by a myelin sheath which insulate the axon and significantly speeds up signal transmission. So these four parts we should remember: dendrite, cell nucleus or soma, axon and synapse. By making use of these four parts only, we are going to develop ANN, artificial neural network. So dendrites, what I have said, it receives the signal from other neurons. Cell body or soma, it process the incoming signal. What it will do means it will receives all information, the signal. It stores the information within this cell body or a soma. Once if it exceeds the threshold, it will fire. The signal will transmit to other neuron through the axon. It sends the signal away from the neuron, and axon terminal, it transfers the signal to the next neuron. It transfers the next neuron through this synaptic gap. Okay. And the myelin sheath, it increases the speed of the signal transmission. Next, how neurons communicate. So neurons communicate with each other through a process called synaptic transmission. When neuron is activated, an electric signal called an action potential travels along the axon to the axon terminal. There is it triggers the release of neurotransmitters, which are chemical messengers that crosses the synaptic gap and bind to receptor sites on the adjacent neuron. If the signal is strong enough, so once if it accumulates the signal, once it fires, it will transmit to the another neuron, adjacent neuron. If the signal strength is strong enough, the next neuron will also fire. If it is strong enough, strong signal is going, the next neuron will also fire, continuing the chain of communication through the network. Next, in this way it will work. These are all the components and how neuron communicate. Next, neural network structure. Biological neural networks are made up of, so this is the biological neural network. It made up of billions and trillions of, so 1 second. So this biological neural network are made up of billions and trillions of neurons connected in a highly complex and dynamic web. These connections allow for both parallelly and distributed processing of information. The structure can include feed-forward networks where signals travel in one direction from input to output, one direction, and feedback loop, so one direction to another loop. Feedback loops where output influences the input, and recurrent networks, so feed forward, feedback and recurrent networks where neurons send signal in a cyclic manner. This flexible architecture supports the brain's capability for learning, memory and adaptive behavior. Behavior. So there are three types: feed forward, feedback circuits, and recurrent networks. So in this way it will work. Next, neural plasticity. This means neural plasticity or neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change and adapt over time. It involves the strengthening or weakening of synaptic connections based on experience, learning, or injury. For example, frequently used pathway in the brain becomes stronger through the process called long-term potential, LTP, potentiation, and potentiation, while your unused connections may fade through long-term depression. This adaptability is essential for learning new skills, recovering from brain damage, and forming memories. Next, learning in biological network. Learning in biological neural network is often explained by the principle of Hebbian learning. So we can call it as the scientists who found out. So we can call it as Hebbian learning, which states neurons that fire together wire together. So this is the quote of Hebb: fire together, fire together. We can call it as wire together. When two neurons are repeatedly activated at the same time, the synaptic connection between them becomes stronger. This repeated activation increases the efficiency of signal transmission, allowing for the storage and retrieval of learned information. Over time, these strengthened pathways form the basis of habits, skills, and memory. Brain regions and specialization. The human brain is divided into different regions. All you know that each is specialized for specific tasks. The cerebral cortex handles complex thinking, planning, and decision making. The hippocampus is critical for forming and organizing new memories, while the amygdala process emotions, particularly fear and emotions, but fear and pleasure. This emotions means this may be a fear or a pleasure. The cerebellum is involved in coordination and motor control, and the brainstem regulates vital functions such as breathing and heart rate. Each region contributes to the overall function of the biological neural network. Next, this is the biological versus artificial neural network. The structure, if you are considering neuron plus synapses, where here artificial neural network will see it in detail, nodes and weights. Communication is electrochemical signal, here numerical values. The learning will be synaptic plasticity, here weight adjustment. The speed will be slow here, and in the computer it will be very fast. Energy efficiency is very efficient, and here less efficient. And the relationship between biological neural network and artificial neural network, this we are calling it as what? BNN, biological neural network. This we are calling it as ANN. This ANN, no, biological neural network. In this case, biological neural network is inspired by what? A similar principle but different structure and operation. Here we are considering it as dendrite. The equivalent to the dendrites we are calling it as inputs, cell nucleus, or the another name what I have said as soma. Here we are calling it as nodes in the artificial neural network, and synapses here we are calling it as weights or interconnections. Axon it travels the carries the information from one neuron to another neuron. This we are calling it as axon. Here we are calling it as the output. So here, as I have said in the previous slide, the biological neural network and artificial neural inspired by the similar principles but differ in structure and operation. Biological neural networks are made of living neurons that communicate through electrochemical signals, while ANN consists of mathematical nodes and weights processed on computers. Biological neurons adapt through chemical changes in the synapses, while ANN learns by adjusting numerical weights. Although ANNs can process information rapidly, biological networks are much more energy efficient and capable of deep contextual understanding. So in this way we are going to design. So as I said, this is the BNN, and we are going to take all the concepts of BNN and we are going to design the mathematical model or artificial neural network. This will be mimic to the human brain. So inputs, it will receive the input from the another neuron. Here we are considering the inputs as x1, x2, x3, and another one more thing is weight is called what I have said, the weight is equivalent to the dendrites or inputs, cell nucleus or soma nodes, synapses or weights. Here this is the weight value, and here this is the cell body there in the biological neural network. Here this we can call it as the node, and this is axon, we are calling it as the output. So x1, x2, x3, and all x1, x2, every x1, x2 is associated with the weight value. Here how the learning will takes place means, if you are not getting the targeted output, we are going to change the weight value. We are keeps on changing the weight value till we get the targeted output. We'll see one example problem in the later lecture. And here this will receive the information, and here the information is accumulated. How the information it will receive me weighted sum of the output, x1 w1, x2 w2 plus x3 w3, etc., xn wn, and another one more function we are going to will see it in the later lecture, b into x naught. That means this is the bias. So we are going to get this neuron will collect the weighted sum of the output wi xi. I varies from 1 to n plus I varies from 1 to n. And here once if it exceeds here we are going to use various activation functions to find out the that we'll see in the later lecture. One here thresholding function, by binary functions we are using. Binary, if you are using threshold, will be fixing the weighted sum. If it exceeds this value, it will be giving us, it will fire. That means it will gives us the value it has 1, otherwise it will be giving us a 0. Okay, so in this way it will work. We'll solve the application problem. And applications of understanding the biological neural networks. Biological neural networks, studying biological neural networks has vast real world applications. In medicine, it aids in diagnosing and treating brain disorders like Alzheimer's, epilepsy, and Parkinson's disease. In technology, it influences the design of artificial intelligence systems and brain computers in interfaces that allow communication between brain and external devices. Additionally, insights from these networks enhance our understanding of human behavior and cognition, and also learning. That cognitive psychology we can call it as. So coming into the summary, biological neural networks form the core of human nervous system, enabling all aspects of life from reflexes to reasoning. Through intricate structures, communication processes, and adaptive capabilities, these networks allow us to sense, learn, remember, and interact with the world. Their study not only deepens our understanding of human biology but also drives innovation in fields like AI, neuroscience, and medicine. Hope everyone understood the basics of biological neural network, how this biological neural networks has been inspired to develop EANN. We'll see deep discussion in the later lectures. Thank you.